We shall have the do's and don'ts now for the session. Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone for the session on being a savvy startup strategies for your venture. Organized by FICCI Ladies Organization Startup Cell Ahmedabad in collaboration with Swarnim Startup and Innovation University. I'm Yogita Sethi, the head of FICCI Ladies Organization Startup Cell Ahmedabad, along with Ms. Fani Trivedi. I extend a hearty welcome to Ms. Malavika Harita, Dr. Karthik Jain, Ms. Pavani Bakeri, Ms. Aarti Gupta, Mr. Deep Mehta, Mr. Arpita Vyas, and all the participants on behalf of Ms. Nandita Munshaw, the chairperson of Flow Ahmedabad. I now invite Ms. Pavani Bakeri, the ex-chairperson of Flow and mentor of the Flow Startup Cell Ahmedabad, to please address us.
I request everybody to please mute themselves. Thank you. So good morning, and I'm very happy to be here amongst all of you. I'd just like to share a little, something about Flow. So Flow was established in 1983 as a division of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, which is the apex body of commerce and industry in India. As an all India organization for women, Flow has 18 chapters pan India with more than 8,000 women entrepreneurs, professionals, and corporate executives as its members. It has been promoting entrepreneurship and professional excellence among women through workshops, seminars, conferences, training, and capacity building programs, and has been facilitating them to showcase their talents, skills, experiences and energies across sectors and verticals of the economy for a truly inclusive economic growth trajectory. Flow works at 3 levels. The first is at the grassroots level, where we train women to make them more employable and absorbable in the markets. And at the middle level, we have entrepreneurship programs to enable them to either set up their own businesses or scale up their existing ones. And the senior level, we promote more women in leadership and board positions. I welcome you all to this exciting seminar. I think we are going to have a lot of learning over here. Over to you, Yogita.
Thank you, Pavani ji. I welcome the Honorable Provost of Swarnim Startup and Innovation University, Dr. Karthik Jain. He is one of the youngest and preeminent strategists and educationists of his generation. He specializes in the development and implementation of technology-based educational system in accordance with the regulatory framework of UGC, NAAC, and HECs and other statutory authorities. I request you to address us, Dr. Karthik Jain.
Thank you. So I'm really thankful to you for providing this opportunity. On behalf of Swarnim Startup and Innovation University, I am really thankful to FICCI Ladies Organization Startup Cell Ahmedabad, Ms. Yogita Sethi, Ms. Fani Trivedi, Ms. Arpita Vyas from Swarnim University. Swarnim is a very young university. We started our operations in the year 2017, and just within a span of 4 years, we have made a very specific place in the startup ecosystem and the academic fraternity, not only in Gujarat, but in India. We are doing a lot of things for the betterment of our students. We are also doing a lot of innovation in our courses. And I would be very happy to inform you that we are the only university in India which has introduced courses specific to startups and innovation according to tenure of any course, like 3 years course, 4-year course, 5-year course, or 3-year diploma courses. So a lot of things are going on, and I am really thankful to the entire FICCI Ladies League for providing this opportunity to Swarnim University. I am really thankful to Ms. Malavika Harita, who is founder and CEO of Brand Circle. So before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction about Ms. Malavika Harita. Teaching, mentoring startups, and empowering women is what drives Ms. Malavika Harita, founder and CEO Brand Circle. She is extremely passionate about the power of communication, storytelling, and digital marketing. Earlier in her career, she founded and ran Saatchi & Saatchi Focus in India for around 25 years, where she worked on brands like Bosch, Reliance Polymers, Infosys, Microsoft, Pfizer, Novartis, and Matt Johnson, amongst others. She has 36 years of experience in communication and entrepreneurship, with brand consultancy, strategic planning, and training being her focus area. Ms. Malavika is the first woman to win the Distinguished Alumni Award from IIM Bangalore. She has been teaching at various postgraduate institutes in India and abroad for the last 28 years because she believes that sharing knowledge is the only way to learn. So, ma'am, I am really thankful to you on behalf of Swarnim University for agreeing to become main chief speaker of this particular session. So I'm really thankful to all of you. And once again, congratulations from Swarnim University. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karthika Jain. I now invite Dr. Aarti Gupta, the National Head of Flow Startup Cell, to elaborate on the Flow Startups.
Thank you, Yogita. A very good morning, everyone. It gives me such a pleasure to be a part of this event by FICCI Flow Ahmedabad Startup Cell and Swarnim Startup and Innovation University for this session with the very accomplished and champion of women empowerment, Ms. Malavika Harita. With a belief to shatter the glass ceiling and change the existing disparity in the startup ecosystem in India, FICCI Flow Startup Cell was initiated to create an ecosystem of women founders and funders. Like Pavani said earlier, FICCI Flow has always been a champion of women entrepreneurship. There have been a number of programs and initiatives under the able leadership of past where our members have been trained and handheld through their entrepreneurial journey. And it's on the building blocks of the work done in the previous years and the dedicated teamwork of Flow members that we continue to work at Flow Startup Cell under the guidance of our national president, Mrs. Ujjwala Singhania. At Flow Startup Initiative, we invite our flowpreneurs to help think, build, scale, pitch, and fund their ventures. We have over 400 women-led startups that are excelling and making a difference through their work in the field of food and agriculture, beauty and fashion, to finance, mobility, and more. We at Flow Startups also recognize the need for women investors, and thus we are working with a cohort of women investors who we call Flow Angels. These Flow Angels are the experienced HNIs in our membership who, with the help of some training, are becoming future investors helping push the startup ecosystem in India to a whole new level. In addition to this, the Flow Startups Cell has created a body of 50 plus certified mentors who help not only the Flow members, but also share their expertise with women entrepreneurs pan-India. They say investing in women means investing in people who invest in everyone else. This quote by Melinda Gates holds a lot of significance to what we're doing at Flow Startup Cell. Over the years, 22 MOUs have been signed by various chapters to mutually help institutions and Flow members. They say no one can whistle a symphony alone. It takes an entire orchestra to play it. Today's program is a proof of one such collaboration, and I would like to congratulate both Swarnim University and Flow Ahmedabad team, headed by Chairperson Nandita Munshaw and the dynamic startup team of Yogita and Funny, to create the startup vision, cell vision, to take the startup cell vision to newer heights, and for facilitating this partnership. I'm eagerly looking forward to hearing Malavika ji sharing her valuable insights. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Aarti Gupta. Well, we have close to 90 participants now. Welcome to all of you. It is going to be an educative and knowledge-enhancing session. We request the participants to post their questions, expectations, and queries on the chat or raise their virtual hands. They shall be addressed during and after the session. Now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce the expert speaker, Ms. Malavika Harita ji. Welcome, Malavika ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very kind of Yogita and Fani to have invited me to the session. And Yogita's been, she and I have been on chat trying to figure out what I should be speaking about today. Thank you to Swarnim University and Dr. J. Also, Vicky Flo and Aarti, nice to have you here. I have been mentoring startups last 4 years since I retired from Saatchi, which I ran as CEO for many, many years. And I've decided that this is going to be my life's mission. So there are two things I'm very excited about. One is empowering women. And I believe that I have a slightly different version of empowerment, but I believe in empowerment. And I love the subline that you've used, the tagline of Flow, which is the power to empower. And I think that's exactly what is needed in this fairly lopsided world of ours, where women are not really given the due respect that they deserve, particularly in the area of women's entrepreneurship. I'm also very grateful to Swarnim University for inviting me today. I believe, being an academic in my other avatar, I always have multiple avatars. So in my other avatar, I'm an academic and I teach in various PG institutes. I also mentor across various incubators, my base being IMB, the NSR cell at IMB. I'm a great believer in entrepreneurial education, and I'm so glad that Swarnim is actually doing something about it. I think startups do need some kind of structure to their learning. It cannot be a random, haphazard, individualistic effort. And I'm so glad that some efforts are being made to ensure a structure. So one of the areas that I'm working with, and I'm very interested in, is building entrepreneurial modules, educational modules, which are very practical and can be applied. Right now, I'm running a boot camp for women entrepreneurs in Bangalore. I mean, they're based all over, but I'm out of Bangalore. And I'm seeing quite good results. The other area that I'm very, very interested in is, can we take entrepreneurship beyond English? Can we look at entrepreneurship with no barriers, like Doctors Without Barriers? So that's the other area that I'm trying to figure out. And I believe that that will actually move the needle. So these are the two areas that I'm very passionate about. At my age, I'm fairly gender neutral. So anything I'm going to say today is equally applicable to both the gentlemen in the audience as well as the ladies. So let me share my screen and let me begin whatever I have to say. What I thought was I'll break this up into shorter modules, and Yogita's very kindly promised to help me with the questions. So about every 10 or 12 minutes, I'll take a break and answer any questions. Please put it into chat and we'll take it from there. I'll try and answer as many of them as I can. So greetings to all of you. Sorry, just give me a minute. Yeah. Greetings to all of you and all my love. I call women wonderpreneurs because I strongly believe that you have to do so many things. You literally have to sort of run your family, run your business, run your home, run everyone around you. And you have to have multiple avatars. There are actually 5 that I always talk about. So I call you wonderpreneurs, and I sincerely mean that. I also am very excited about having a group of studentpreneurs here, because I think entrepreneurship is something that comes from the heart, and it's something we can help you to build on as senior mentors. So my love and blessings and hugs to all of you. I'm going to talk about communication today. But in addition to that, I'm going to share some tips and frameworks on how to tell your business story impactfully, including to investors, which is very important in this ecosystem. But my point is, your communication or your business story needs to have relevance, originality, and impact. That's my version of return on investment, because you're putting time and energy into building it. And this, I believe, will be the foundation for learning about how to tell your story and to continue building your brand. Now, while I call it communication, since I am a consumer behaviorist and supposedly a communication specialist, I think it's much bigger than this. And I want you to look at the deck and whatever I'm going to talk about today as your business strategy. I think this will become, if you build it well, it'll actually become the crux of your business strategy, and you can use it as such. So I think it's got multiple uses. We call it a pitch deck for want of a better term, but basically it's going to cover your entire business structure. And I'll tell you how in a minute. When I started doing this on a regular basis, I stepped back and said, what is it that I can help startups with? What is the strategic business storytelling that I can incorporate into my offering? And I looked at 4 blocks, which is what I'm going to look at now, talk to you about, which is architecting your story, building it, delivering it, and then amplifying it. And you need all 4 of these pillars in order to run a successful business. The architecting part, just like you build buildings, requires what are called content blocks, right? So one of the things that I do with the startups that I regularly mentor, and I work one-on-ones with them, is to start with defining your product and service very, very clearly, the problem that you're going to solve, your stakeholder definition, and believe me, you have many stakeholders in this ecosystem, your competition, your consumer, and they call me the value prop lady at IMB, but the articulation of your value prop, and I think Yogita and I had several discussions on her value proposition, and that is very critical for you to hook your business on, your business model, your financial data, and your GTM, right? So these are the basic content blocks. And if you look at it critically, this is actually your entire business strategy. And what I try and do is help you define these in some ways and more importantly, help you to communicate about these content blocks. The next two parts about how you build your story. What is the content? What should be the text, visuals, videos, defining your audience? Why are you making this particular presentation? How do you structure it? What is the logic? And all of that. Then, of course, the writing, editing, design. So this is the physicality of your building your story. A very important part, and this is something I cannot emphasize enough, is your passion with which you deliver your story. Having spoken to a number of VCs, banks, angel investors, and just about everybody to understand what they look for, I found that they actually buy into the passion of the entrepreneur, right? And this is very critical for you to absorb. If you don't have that passion, nobody's going to look at your enterprise, right? Whether they're media or they're an employee or they're an investor. So the passion has to have a purpose. Passion by itself makes you a politician, not an entrepreneur. So passion with a purpose and a proper plan of action is what I advocate and what I'll show you very briefly how to do. Lastly, is this enough? Is building your personal story enough? In today's world of instant gratification and a VUCA world, which is constantly changing, you need to actually amplify your story. And this is where branding, including personal branding, your communication strategy, your digital marketing and your database marketing come into play. So since I've worked across most of these areas and a lot of industry verticals as well in my earlier avatars, I believe that this rounds off the whole process. So when I present to you your story, you also need to understand the 4 components that you have to build, put together, present, and amplify. And why are you doing this? You are building what I call and what I've termed a power brand. And every brand in today's very, very, shall we say, linked world or integrated world where we are all communicating with each other because of technology has 3 avatars. We're all familiar with the marketing avatar because that's the most obvious one, our consumers. What we are not familiar with, some of us, is the talent avatar, which is the people within the organization. Now, you as the founder or the co-founder love your organization, right? It's your baby. Your employees may not. Please remember, they are there for a job. So it is up to you as the founder to inculcate in them some of your passion. I'm not saying they'll get all of it, but at least some of your passion, which means they become your brand ambassadors. And this is becoming very critical in today's highly hyper-connected world. The third facet of what I call a power brand is the corporate brand. And this is something you also, and these are a whole bunch of people you still need to communicate to because they're outside your ecosystem. So you have your analysts, you have your investors, you have the government, you have a whole bunch of vendors, you have the media, and in today's world, social activists are very important. You have your e-commerce partners. So you have a huge ecosystem of people that you need to talk to. So just building a consumer brand or building a personal brand is no longer enough. You actually need to build the power brand, right? And that is what I strongly believe that all of you should start. Now, you may be at different stages of evolution, but it's never too early to begin planning for the future, including for my student entrepreneurs. Why do I ask you to do this? I want you to convert your customer to what we in Saatchi terminology call a love mark. A love mark is a very simple idea. It says that my customer or my stakeholder must love me, which means there's an emotional connect. I'm not talking about Archie's type of love. I'm talking the emotional connects. based on very, very high respect. Because the love marks are those who are actually going to go and evangelize your product to others. So especially if you are in the startup phase or in the early growth phase, your first 100 customers who go and evangelize about your product to others are like gold, because you can save so much. Believe me, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but you can save so much in terms of communication and advertising if your customers evangelize your product to others rather than you having to tell them, because there is so much more credibility. So it's not enough for customers to be loyal, and that's part of the process. If we can actually get 10% of our customers to evangelize your brand, I think you've got a great thing going. And this is a target you should actually give yourself, because I think the first 100 customers in any entrepreneurial venture are the best, because they have nothing to lose and they actually give you tremendous feedback. So this is why I believe that an emotional connect has to be backed by respect. And this respect, and this is something I want to also emphasize to all of you, this respect only happens if your product or service delivers what you promised it will. So if I'm going to sell you a car, the car better be the best engineered car, because there is no forgiving that. There is no going away from that. If I buy a pen, I need a pen which writes. If I'm selling you a phone, the phone needs to work, right? So your product and your service have to deliver, because that's a contract between you and the buyer. And on top of that, you can add the softer emotional connects. But basically, the respect comes from your product delivery. Okay? And a lot of people forget that. They believe that they can do the softer stuff and it doesn't matter. Because you're a startup, you will be forgiven. And I'm saying, why? Why should you be forgiven? You've jolly well you've taken their money, right? You jolly well have to give them the best product or service that you have promised to give them, right? You're not promising them the earth and the moon, but you promise them something. That's a contract. You need to forgive. That's how the respect gets built over time. So when you are telling your business story, any story, right? So it could be a Karan Johar movie or a Bertolucci film. It could be anything. You normally have various players in this story. So you have a mission, which is your objective. You have characters, the players in the business ecosystem. Now I'm shifting to the business story part. You have opponents and obstacles, not your opponents and obstacles, your customers' opponents and obstacles. And finally, your product or service provides a solution. So this is a very simplistic way of defining a business story based on the principles of storytelling, right? So if you look at any movie, you look at any story, you always have these 5 elements in it. And this is something I would like you to think about very seriously. One point of advice here is that you're not talking about what you want to say. You're talking about what your customer wants to know. So that what's in it for them is the critical part of any amount of storytelling or pitching or whatever you do. If you're talking to an investor, what is it that the investor wants to know? If you're talking to the customer, what is it that the customer wants to know? And this is very critical. I love this acronym, which is WIIFM. What's in it for me? Me being your customer. The other thing I strongly believe in, and this has been proven to me many times, and as I get older, I realize better to be simple. Keep communication, keep your pitching, keep your business model, keep everything simple. We tend to complicate everything so much that we get confused and we confuse everyone around us. I also say that in terms of communication, you need to ensure it's readable, because we have this tendency of stuffing everything into a single slide and then hoping that our audience will figure it out. So if you look at some of your billboards in Ahmedabad, you will notice that they are packed with material. And by the time you pass it in 7 seconds or 15 seconds, as the case may be, you wouldn't have got even one message out of it. So my basic principle, keep it simple, keep it logical, Because remember, you love your product and service. Obviously, you're in love with it. Others aren't. So whatever you do and say has to be logical for your audience, has to have a logic for your audience. And one of the structures that I recommend is to have a main point, sub points, and support points. Now, everything I present, people accuse me sometimes of this, looks very simple. Just try and adopt the structure and see how tough it is to do, right? I do a very simple thing here, and this is for all the students who are in the audience. Take an A3 size paper, take a bunch of Post-its, if you've got to do 12 slides, stick 12 Post-its on that A3 paper. On each Post-it, write down the 1 or 2 points which you want to cover, move them around, see that it makes sense. Once it's clear and logical to your audience, then start putting it into PowerPoint or whichever software you use. But this structure is very flexible. It also depends on the time you get. Nowadays, you get 2 minutes to pitch, in which case you can have, say, 3 slides. So this is something, I'm not going into communication presentation skills in this session, but I thought this particular framework is so flexible, and I've used it for a very, very long time. So everything I'm presenting to you people is things that I have used and experimented with. Know your audience. This is something we forget, and tailor your message for them, because you're not talking to yourself, you're talking to an audience. Please always remember that. And rule number 4, I like these, I always present as rules so that it's easily usable, is answer WIFT, which is what's in it for them being your audience. My 5th rule, I love formulae, being the science student, is P3. All right, and I call it the power of P3. And I mentioned this earlier. Everything that you do or say or communicate needs purpose, needs planning, and needs to be delivered with all your passion. And particularly so with entrepreneurs, because yours is sometimes just an idea in your head. And if it doesn't get through, then there is nobody's going to understand your idea or bother to even ask you what it is. So one of the things I have realized, which is why I'm so particular about the elevator pitch or the value proposition, is that you literally have 30 seconds to tell your story. And if you're not able to create that impact in the 30 seconds, you can have 100 slides after that. Nobody's going to listen to you. Once you're done, always assess your communication, your presentation, your communication against this little framework that I've developed, which I call the SEF framework, right? It's fairly self-explanatory. And always ask yourself, was my presentation or my communication relevant to the audience? Original, did it make people think? And did it have the impact that I desired, right? So this is a very simple piece, that module that I thought I'd share with you in terms of the way you communicate and all about strategic business storytelling. I'm not doing this because it's gyan or because I'm a professor in my other avatar. No, not at all. I have done a huge amount of research, as I said, with the other side. I always believe that communication is for your audience, and I've talked to investors, bankers, VCs, the works. And I, based on my discussions and research, I have come up with a small formula that you can use. This is how you get assessed as a startup. Firstly, your idea, the impact that it's going to have short-term, medium-term, long-term. What does your proposal look like? Is it deep enough? Have you done sufficient analysis? Have you piloted it? Do you have the clarity? Is it feasible? And please understand something. People look at whether you, the entrepreneur or the founder, are very clear about your idea. You can't just say, oh, I don't know what money, my accountant looks at that. And this guy is saying, hey, I'm giving you my money, and if you don't know what it's going to do, then I don't think I want to trust you with my money, right? So this is the feasibility of the project. They also assess you as the entrepreneur. Are they able to articulate? Are they clear? All of this. and something which is very soft. And it sounds a very odd word to use in this context, but we are talking about charisma. And I think this is the deal breaker in a lot of cases. You may have the best presentation, but if the audience doesn't believe or the investor doesn't believe you have the charisma to take it through, believe me, you're not going to get whatever you're asking for. Okay, so this was, in short, the way I look at presentations and these sort of frameworks that I had built to ensure that you're able to deliver. I'm going to take a minute and ask if there are any questions that you'd like me to answer. Anybody? I'm very amused because I probably stunned you into silence, but it's okay. Any questions, anything you want to ask me, be happy to answer. No? Don't be frightened of me, students. I just look frightening. I'm not really. Just look like that with all my gray hair, but I'm not really frightening. Okay, great. Yogita, nothing on chat, right? Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Nothing as of now. Students, please do post your questions in the chat if you have, and later you could raise your hands. Take this opportunity to ask anything from Malavika ma'am, and she will address you.
It is my strong belief that the core of your business strategy, your business story, call it what you will, is your value proposition and your go-to-market strategy. So this has various parts. You have your customer, you have competition, you have your competitive advantage, and then you have your plan of action, right? So all of these combine to form your strategic purpose. And this is something that you need to capture in any presentation, any pitch deck, or even in a basic conversation. So let me jump into that. I call this the smart customer framework. And I love what Jeff Bezos says when he says that you don't necessarily need to be focused on your customer. You need to be obsessed with the customer. And I strongly urge all of you to spend that time going into the market. This is also for the lady entrepreneurs present. Please go into the market, talk to your customers. A good rule is at least 10 customers a week is critical. And this is something you don't delegate. This is something you do yourself, so you get a first-hand view of your customer, right? So you need to know all of this about your customer, from demographics to insights. You also need to look at the other side. How does the customer look at you? You may think that you are the best product in the world, but if the customer doesn't think so, they're not going to open their wallets and buy from you. So my submission to all of you is, please understand value from the customer perspective. So it's not just a product or service you're selling all the rest of it. You're selling your experience, the content, the community, the personalization, all of that. And these are, I think, the 9 blocks that the customer normally looks for, and then forms a holistic picture of your brand or your enterprise, right? So please understand who the customer is. Please also understand how they perceive value. And if you can deliver that, then you have a winning proposition. I'm not going to talk about competition, and this is something we neglect a lot. You may not, and I keep hearing a lot of my startups telling me, we have no competition. Of course you have. People are using something else, right? So before Colgate came in with toothpaste and a toothbrush, we were all still brushing our teeth with our finger, maybe with tooth powder, maybe with a neem stick. So please remember, competition is not necessarily direct. It can come from anywhere. And today with technology, the entry barriers are just crumbling. So anybody can do anything. The barriers just don't exist. So you don't need to put up huge manufacturing units anymore. You can just source, I know, from our hated enemy, China, or we can just do an Atmanirbhar and manufacture it right here, outsource it, right? So your competition is very critical for you to know. They could happen in many fronts. I love this little unit that I use called the petal diagram. And this is a great way for you to, shall I say, picturize your competition. And you can use any what shall I say, any kind of characteristics you may choose. It could be maybe revenues, it could be share, it could be markets. The parameters would vary from whatever you decide and however you're going to slice your market. But it's very important for you to know your competition. And this petal diagram I thought was particularly useful and graphic. The other way is, and when you go for a pitch, one of the things you're always asked is who's your competition? And this is a great way to show it. The other way, the more traditional way, where you look at two benefits on two axes and ensure that you are in the right-hand top corner. Okay. Sometimes it sounds a little, staged. That's why I like the petal diagram better. But this is another way of depicting your competition. You can obviously avoid trying to put it into a box and ticking. It's very passe. As I said, I'm called the value prop lady. And I'm going to share with you examples of propositions. This is a personal one. And this is something I built for my students at the various IIMs. I told them that if they're going in for a job interview, and I want you to apply the same to an organization. The reason I'm doing this is I thought it'd be more meaningful to you as students. When you go in for a job interview, the first question your interviewer will ask you is, tell me about yourself. Now, I don't want to hear about your grandmother, grandfather, your horoscope, and the village you came from. I want to know why I should hire you. So there is a hidden meaning to that question. So your value proposition, your personal value proposition would depend on the job, what the recruiters are looking for, what you bring to the table, and what makes you different from your classmates. Okay? So this is the way you would frame a personal value proposition. And I would urge all of you to actually build it for yourselves. This is very, very useful, and it cuts through the clutter of an interview, right? So I talked about who I am. I'm Akshay Kumar. I'm an engineer from NIT Surathkal with 5 years of experience. I've been working, selling washing machines. I'm extremely interested in the position that you're offering. I made up a job, right? Little product manager, because I believe that Little is transforming to meet the needs of this new omni-channel, omni-media consumer. And I can help with this because I have these certifications, my knowledge, and my summer internship with Godrej, which is going through a similar transformation. So I made this up. But this is the way all of us, and this applies to you ladies as well. When people ask you, tell me about yourself, they're not asking for your entire history and geography. They're asking for a 30-second elevator pitch, and this is it. All right. So I built that. Then the second thing is, if you're a for-profit, I've got 2 different value props. So this is for a profit organization. You define your customer. What is the pain or benefit that you're giving them? How can your product or service deliver that? And how are you better than anybody else? All right. And this is the way you need to frame it. 30 seconds, and practice saying it yourself. 30 seconds, 1 sentence. This is the discipline of the value proposition. And if you can do this right, your audience is going to listen to you for the next 2 hours. If you don't do this right, they'll start looking at their phones and you're out of it. All right. So this is what I say is the crux of any communication or any presentation, any pitch deck that you provide. Let me give you one for nonprofit. All right. Here, it is the same funda. And this is something I tell all the social enterprises that I work with. You have beneficiaries, not customers. You are removing their pain. I have to be very specific about it. You're not Miss World saying, I'm going to remove world hunger, right? You are a social enterprise providing a certain service. How can your service deliver that? And you are competing with zillions of other NGOs and social enterprises in the same area. All right. So please don't run away with the idea that social enterprises have no competition. So this is another company that I talk about, and this is called Evershine. I actually made it up. But if you look at the way I have crafted the value proposition, it says exactly who you benefit. Students in classes 11 and 12, unable to get good jobs because of their soft skills or lack of them. Therefore, Evershine has this 3 to 6 months of free training to make them employment ready. Now, I have taken the liberty of adding another sentence, and I'm saying the end result is the number of and quality of the students that Evershine has been able to place. All right. So this is the way I want you to focus on getting the first part of your story, which is the value proposition right. Ask yourself these 4 questions. Who are we benefiting? What are we giving them? How are we better? Why should they buy us? How are we going to deliver this? And why are we better? If your value prop doesn't answer any of these 4 questions, just go back to the drawing board. Don't put Band-Aid on it. Just stop, go back, start again. All right. So the building the value proposition, I think, as an entrepreneur is one of the most important things that you will do. And if you get it right, sky's actually the limit, provided you have enough people to buy your product. All right. So that's the other part. But basically, this is the crux of any business strategy. I keep having this conversation, which is why I have put this up as well. How do you define your market? Again, this very cute little tool. I believe in very simple tools. Tam, Sam, Som, PM. How many of us actually define our markets clearly? Very few. And that is the reason that our entire business strategy and business story goes out of the window. Because we are trying to talk to everybody, it is not credible. You need to figure out who your audience is. So your world audience, your world, the size of the world market could be whatever, 25 billion. But if you're operating in 2 villages in Gujarat, that is not your market. Your market potentially is the other villages in Gujarat. So let's be very realistic about this. And I've just worked out something for you to take a look at. And look at the way it funnels down. So this was for an infant milk substitute. I've guessed some numbers. So you're saying all women age group 25 to 34 with infants less than 2 years, all India. There are about 1 million women, say. Out of that, I can only handle Karnataka because I don't have distribution strengths elsewhere. It comes down immediately to 1 lakh or 0.1 million, right? Now, in that 0.1 million, I can't get all of them, right? So I have to aim at an obtainable market of 10%, which means 10,000 women. Look at the way it's decreasing. And I have already met 1,000 women. So I've got another 9,000 to go. And this is the way that you actually build your demand estimation. A lot of us get stuck on this, which is why I put up this model very, very clearly. Okay. I've given you another example. Once you have devised this, write it down. Don't carry stuff in your head. Put it down so that everyone is on the same page. And this is what is called a GTM or a go-to-market strategy. Once you've got your product or service organized, as you grow, you need to know all of this information and you need to plan for it. So this is basically the GTM is your market plan. And this is something you also need to put down very, very clearly. Yogita, before I go on to the next.
Yes, there are 2 questions in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest mistakes made by startup entrepreneurs? Would you like to take that up now or towards the end of the discussion?
What's the second one?
How should equity be divided among my co-founders?
All right. The second one, I would need to know more about your company before I answer it. It just depends on what you bring to the table. I think equity should be divided. One could be on the money you bring to the table or potential investment that you bring to the table. But I think equity should actually be divided on the skill that you bring to the table and the function that you are going to fulfill. I believe that that would be a much fairer way of dividing the equity. So if you are, say, a CFO or a CTO or a CEO, I would vary the equity accordingly. The biggest mistake, coming to your first question, but I need to look at that a little deeper to know what kind of a company we're talking about. So it could be finances or it could be expertise. Both are possible. What is the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make? They're not clear about their value proposition. This is the biggest mistake that they make. They haven't met their customer. They haven't spoken to enough consumers. They believe that they have a wonderful idea which has not been verified. And that is, I think, why, if you look at the statistics, most companies fail, because they don't have two things. They don't know their consumer, they're not removing a genuine pain, and there is no competitive edge. So there are a lot of Me Too products that are happening, which remain small and tiny, are not able to scale because of this exact problem. So it is always better to do this initially. I follow what is called Steve Blank's methodology for the lean enterprise. And one of the things that I recommend is that they build your lean model canvas starting point, then go out and meet 100 customers. And unless they do that, they don't have an enterprise. So I'm actually working now with a whole bunch of student entrepreneurs in Bangalore. It's part of a DST IICDC program. And one of the things I teach them to do is actually go out and meet the 100 customers. And you should see the change it makes in their whole thinking as you go through this customer identification process. It's amazing. And they suddenly realize that it's not their idea which matters. What matters is the customer buying into it. Anything else, Yogita? Can I proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm just going to put out here, and this has different avatars depending on who you're pitching to. But I found that this sort of structure is something you could very usefully adopt. All right. So your pitch deck template should be kept simple. So if you look at my deck, it's pure white. I love red, which is why I have touches of it here and there just to change it. I have my bindi at the bottom, which is my brand identity. And I keep my slides neat, elegant. There's a certain font size that you must use, 44-point headlines, 24-28 copy. And keep the text minimal. I'm not saying zero. Keep the text minimal. Ensure that the slides are interesting for your audience. Don't stuff it with numbers. So this is a neat little template that I have built, and we have been testing over the last few years with a lot of startups. It works, right? So this 12-slide deck is what I'm going to share with you. First slide, name, company, brand logo, if you have one. A visual of your customers or your customers, if you're a B2B. And this is the slide on which you give your narrative. That is why you started this venture, what you thought about it. You just humanize it. Now, when I say narrative, you don't have to, speak the whole Mahabharata or Ramayana. You just have a 30-second icebreaker kind of thing as to why you started your particular venture. All right. So if I was, say, the founder of Swiggy, right? I'm just going back. I'm imagining something. I'm going to do a fake narrative here. So I could never, and I'm now telling you my narrative, the founder of Swiggy. I could never get food when I wanted it, never get food which was hot, and I can't cook. So as a bachelor, my life was miserable in the first couple of years that when I started my career. And that was when I realized that if I could create a delivery service which would deliver food home whenever I needed it, I would have a winner on my hands. And therefore, that was how Swiggy was born. I made it all up, all right? But this is the way you actually tell your story. Slide 2 is your value proposition, which I've already spoken about, and details of your core team, right? Just names, designations, again, not their entire CV, just why they are on board, what is the expertise that they bring to the table. If you're already there, this depends on whether you're either early stage or you're in the growth stage, all right, or late startup stage, whatever the stage, it's good to talk about what you have achieved so far. If you have numbers, put it down here. If you have your first paying customer, put it down here. Are you in prototype stage, MVP, whatever it is? Okay, so this just is like a snapshot. This is like your visiting card. So slide number 1 says who you are and what you've done so far. So this is your visiting card. It actually gives people an idea of the rest of what you're going to say after this. And I want to talk about your problem, right? So what is the problem that you are planning to solve? How big is the problem, right? And why do you say that it is a problem at all? Here is where you could place some numbers before the audience and say, okay, this is the problem. So I have found that there are 1 million villages in India which don't have drinking water or don't have access to drinking water. All right. So if it's a social organization, you put the problem into context and say, to ensure that they have drinking water, I've looked at this portable device, very easy to use, just plug and play, and it's able to purify any kind of water from anywhere. All right. So I'm just, again, imagining stuff and putting it here. So this is my solution, my problem, which I'm trying to solve, and therefore my solution. Now, one of the things I would like to talk about to this group, your solution, make it graphical. Do not make it text heavy, and do not make it so heavily, so many details on it. People don't really want to know. Convert the whole thing into a very smart infographic, put it out there. Your range of products and services, how you're better than competition, what are the benefits. The petal diagram works brilliantly here. And how you are better or how you compare with competition. Don't force this, because you never know whether your audience knows about your competitor. Maybe they're funding your competitor. So you should be very careful about what you say here, and it should be well researched. All sources of data available to you. If you have had any early success, this is where you add your customer testimonials, again with permission, any brief success stories, all of that to support the fact that your product has already been fairly well received in the market. If not, not. Now, people are not buying your past. They are buying your future. And this slide, according to me, is very, very important. And most people don't do this right. What is your plan of action? And as an enterprise, are you profitable, scalable, and sustainable? These are the 3 pillars that any investor, any government, any media, or any employee looks for. And I say this even for social enterprise. Are you profitable? And when I say profitable, probably not enough money to buy a Lamborghini, but are you profitable enough to pay your employees every month? Are you profitable enough to have money for yourself to eat? I'm not saying no luxuries here. And because if you are not profitable, you run around every month with a begging bowl trying to figure this out, and you spend the time that you should be spending doing good in chasing money. So this is something I want you to be very clear about. Profitability, scalability, and sustainability. And this is what you need to talk about in your vision. Now, vision is not to remove world hunger. Vision is to provide my product to 10 villages in Gujarat in the next 6 months. I want your vision to be a stretch one, but I want it to be a very clear, quantifiable vision. And this is something which is very important, especially for startups. Don't try and say, I'm going to take on a global market. You can't. If you're just in one small center somewhere, how are you going to do the global market in 1 year? You can't. So, but in 3 years, I can definitely cover, say, the state of Gujarat. So I want you to make your vision quantifiable and doable, for which your plan follows, but it has to have a stretch in it. So normally I suggest a 3 to 5 year time frame for stating your vision. The next slide looks at how you're going to achieve this vision. So is it you're going to use MRP, PaaS, SaaS, subscription. So all your money part comes in here. So how am I going to achieve that vision? Through my go-to-market strategy. Okay, I've spoken about the GTM already. This is a block that you build and plug in here. Clear, precise, what you're going to do. Okay, and here look at quarterly breaks. Look at every 3 months, what is your company going to achieve? This serves another purpose. When you become, those of you who are in growth stage or late stage entrepreneurship, it's our own company. So we tend to let targets slide because we can always do it next month, so our company. That's the worst thing an entrepreneur can do. If you set yourself a target of 100 customers this month, you need to get 100 customers this month and not make excuses that you'll do it next month, right? So just like in corporate life, you have very strict targets. I strongly urge you to have the same for your entrepreneurial venture. Now, money. It's money, money, and money. And if you don't project this correctly and you don't present this correctly, nobody is going to give you their money. So one of the things, it's an art in itself. How do you present money? Please use graphs. Please use very clear charts. These are actually the things that any investor looks for. Just the top line. If they want more data, you have it on Excel sheet. So just don't dump Excel sheets on your PowerPoint. Take that out of there. Say what you're going to do. Show it graphically. Either use a column diagram, bar diagram, or a line graph. Put your details down very, very, very clearly. Okay. Simpler, the better. If anyone wants data, you have your Excel sheets as backup, but that's not how you present data. And I cannot think of anything more miserable than cutting and pasting an Excel sheet, which nobody can read, and hoping that everyone will get the point. Present your financials. This is an art, and you must practice doing this. All right. The last but one slide is what you're asking the consumer, what you're asking your customer. What is it you want? Do you want, say, for example, this was for NSR Cell. What do I want from NSR Cell? I want knowledge. I want mentoring. What is my burn rate? What am I going to spend every month? What is the amount of funds I have? 6 months maybe. So that's my runway. Simple charts and graphs which talk about what you're spending the money on. Very clearly put right there. Okay. When you're asking, I normally recommend this pie chart. It's the easiest thing to do. And it tells the person that you're asking the money from, that you know how the money is going to be spent very, very clearly. So this is something you need to work on. And I always believe that if you can reduce the ask by running a frugal operation, that's the best thing you can do. Finally, thank you. Obviously, logo, summary of your value proposition, a visual of your target audience, and any contact details that you want to share. So this 12-slide deck that I have kind of built over with experience, and we've gone through many, many pitches with this, actually encapsulates your entire story. And if you do this well, that's all you need to say. Anyone wants more data, you obviously have the backup with you. Yogita, shall I just take another 5 minutes and close the presentation, or you want to take questions now?
If there are any questions, please post them on the chat or raise your hands. As of now, there are no questions, Malavika. There are no further questions.
Great. So I cannot end anything without a little mommy talk, so I'm going to do that now. This applies, I think, across. It doesn't matter about your age, just sharing some of the things I've learned in life, and I find they're very useful. My learnings, and I have been probably working longer than any of you have been born here in this room, but what I want to share with you is what it takes to be a good manager or a good founder. And I strongly believe a good human being, right? I want all of you, and this is for the lady entrepreneurs and the student entrepreneurs, keep asking why. And that's why I am so excited about my life. I'm 63 today. I mean, this year. And I am still asking why, which is why in my head, I'm about 18 or 16, right? And I keep asking why. I'm very curious. Right now, I'm trying to study the metaverse and see where it's going to take people. I'm always learning and thinking. And this is something I urge you strongly to do. Be curious. And especially for my young studentpreneurs, this is critical for both your education and for your entrepreneurship journey. I want you to dream big, but I want you to have a plan B, C, D, right up to Z, because after COVID, I realized that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And God has a way when he feels that things are going too smoothly for you, he throws you a curveball. I don't know why he does that, probably gets bored. And if you don't have a plan B, C, D, E, F, you get stuck and you keep mourning your fate and say, oh dear, what's happened to me? Why me? Right? So I always have at least about 6 backup plans for everything I do. It's automatic now after so many years. But I urge you to dream big, but have a plan B. Please fail. Please fail. It's good to fail. I have learned much more through my failures than I have through my success. And this is something, especially for the younger generation, I think we as parents have not taught you to be resilient enough. Life is not easy. It's tough. It's not very pretty, but you have to learn to fail and take things in your stride, not bemoan the fact that you failed and feel envious of everyone else. So this is something I want to share with you. Please fail. It's very important. Don't do it deliberately, but if you fail, accept it. Paisa is good, and entrepreneurs have to be good with money. There's no two ways about that. But don't let it become an obsession, right? Don't live for money. Live for your enterprise. This is my serious, because there's always going to be someone who's better off than you, right? And ultimately, I don't think money makes you happy. It's good to have. I'm not saying that I want to live in a slum and not have money. But I don't think it's something that has ever driven me, which is perhaps why I am not an entrepreneur today, right? And I teach entrepreneurs, which is the next best thing. Take the blame when you're wrong. This is, again, a very Indian thing. We never accept that we could be wrong. And this is something that you need to do, because otherwise you'll get stuck. And as entrepreneurs, you cannot stay in one place. You need to get on with your life. So if your idea doesn't work, if you need to pivot, if you made a mistake, accept it and get on with life. As I said earlier, it's nice to win, gives you about 3 minutes and 2 Facebook posts and 1 Insta post. Beyond that, I don't think it achieves too much. I think the chase is much better than the actual win. One of the things, and this is something I have learned the very hard way, I was one of the most disorganized people I knew. But being entrepreneurs, being women entrepreneurs or wonderpreneurs, and being studentpreneurs, you need to be able to manage your time. This is critical, because the better you manage your time, the more time you have to think and explore. And my final piece of mommy advice is, don't worry, be happy. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing is so dire that it cannot be faced. And if you don't face it, you're never going to overcome it. So my greetings and blessings to all of you. And my son winces whenever I put this up, because he's a Trekkie and he loves Star Wars. But I've combined the two, and may the force be with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Malavika ma'am, for an enriching session with great value additions. I especially loved the mommy talk. I was all smiles while we were doing it. The forum is now open for question and answers. There is one question by Dr. Karthik in the chat. He wishes to know about SOM.
Someone has asked about SOM. I don't get that.
The TAM SOM thing.
SOM. Okay. That is the market that you can actually obtain. That is the share of the market, Dr. Patel, that you can actually obtain. Obtainable market is what it is. That you can service and obtain.
Arpita, are there any questions from the students? Anybody has any questions?
No?
I think there was this question that what are the biggest mistakes made by startup entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think I answered that a little bit funny, but basically it's not being clear about your value prop, not understanding your customers, right? I think the biggest mistake startups make is not understanding their customers. A lot of you are in love with your idea because it's your idea, right? It's like your baby. But you don't realize that others may not be in love with your idea, and your customer is probably not going to open their wallet and pay for it. So this is a learning, and it's very important that you meet your customers. A lot of us don't. And we just, then when our product actually hits the market, we realize that no one wants to buy it. That's the biggest mistake. So defining your customer and understanding them, going and meeting them, and creating a product or service that they're actually going to pay for is, I think, critical for any startup.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
May I request the IT team to display the token of appreciation for Malavika ma'am?
Oh.
Thank you so much, Malavika ma'am. These are seed balls.
Oh, okay.
Are germinated into plants, an effort towards a greener environment. And there is a memento of our state, Gujarat.
Okay, lovely.
Courier to you.
I'll plant it into my new garden. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I request Ms. Fani Trivedi, the co-head of Flow Startup Cell, Ahmedabad, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malavika. It was a truly inspiring and insightful session. And I did not know you are known as the value prop lady in the startup ecosystem. Thank you for exemplifying key aspects and key questions that every startup has to attempt and answer at some or the other stage of their startup. There are many, many take homes for flowpreneurs and studentpreneurs today at Flow, as well as Swarnim Startup and Innovation University. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Aarti Gupta, the national head of Flow Startup Cell, for her through and through guidance to me and Yogita, as this is the last event for this term by Flow Startup Cell Ahmedabad chapter. I want to specially thank our chief mentor, Mrs. Pavni Bakeri Agarwal, for her time, inputs, and guidance for planning our year-long events. Thank you so much, Pavni. I would like to express a huge thank you to Mr. Jain, Mr. Deep Mehta, and Ms. Aarti Vyas of Startup and Innovation University for helping us in co-organizing this event. I wanted to thank our PR partner, TVM Communications, and our creative partner, Brand Affair, for supporting us throughout this year, and our annual sponsor, Sadaiv Rishte, a boutique matrimonial, for being there for every event that Flow Ahmedabad chapter organized. With this, we conclude this event, and thank you so much for joining us and making time. Have a good day. And with this, we will